I start looking up on Pinterest short curly hairstyles because my brain, I could feel, was trying to protect me and keep me calm of like, see, if we have to cut off all our hair, it could still look cute even if we go bald.
Oh my gosh.
So this was a Sunday, and I know she has a hair salon, but it was a Sunday. It was an emergency. I was panicking, and thankfully she welcomed me into her home.
Oh, good.
This is where the story takes a turn, because once this unbraider starts talking to me,
Okay.
she immediately starts saying just every trigger word about me being mixed. Places, everyone, it's showtime. Welcome to The Naked Puppet, the show that pulls back the curtain on all things dating, sex, intimacy, the body, and the brains. Yes, plural. That's because this is the unfiltered diary of somebody who repressed their trauma, developed multiple ladies that live in her brain, and dissociated through life without even knowing it. But now, you guys, I'm getting my life back one scene at a time. Hello, everyone. I am LAJC. I am currently backstage pulling all of the strings, and joining me on stage is one of those ladies that lives in my brain. Hello, I'm Healing JC, the version of us finally stepping into wholeness. I'm basically the part trying to process everything that we've been through and guide all of our parts into integration. Yep, this JC basically represents our system as a whole as we navigate this whole healing journey. But she's not the only part we'll be talking to. Today, we're gonna be diving into a hair disaster where, you guys, I literally thought I was going to have to shave my head bald, but it ended up activating all of the struggles that I've had with being half black and half white. So once Healing JC is done telling you the juicy story, we're gonna be talking to the part that got triggered and giving her the mic to tell her side of the story of having this crazy mixed identity. And just a reminder that this is my personal experience. I'm not a therapist, so please seek licensed support if you need it, because this is not medical advice. And if you're watching this over on YouTube, go and catch up on some of my other episodes. YouTube doesn't like to push out this type of content, so make sure to check out my page for anything that you might have missed. And of course, like and subscribe so you're notified for all future episodes. But all right, the stage is set, the spotlight is warm, and our leading lady is in position. Now, JC, I see you have some new braids, but a couple of episodes ago, you mentioned that you got braids for the first time going to Oktoberfest. Is that right? Yes, it was my first time getting braids, and shout out to my bestie Angelina, who spent 10 hours with me into the wee hours of the night to get them.
Yes, love you.
But yes, I wanted to get them for traveling because I was going to Oktoberfest, if you guys have seen that episode as well. So I just wanted something easy for traveling, and so I got some boho braids, and it was so incredible having braids, and it honestly unlocked something so deep inside of me. Ooh, okay, so how was your experience having braids for the first time? Oh my God, I loved it. Okay, so I haven't had long hair in years, ever since I cut my hair short and went on a curly hair journey.
Right.
Because growing up, I would straighten my hair all the time, or I would even wear wigs. But I have been trying to grow out my curly hair for so long because I miss having long curly hair. And my hair just won't grow, but getting braids was kind of like the best of all worlds, and having long hair, but still feeling like my natural hair.
Yes.
Because once I got these braids, it kind of just felt like, you know, I was in a slow motion shampoo commercial for the first time, even though I would just be like buying bananas at a Trader Joe's.
Okay, so it sounds like it gave you some confidence.
Yes, like I said in that Oktoberfest episode, I definitely feel like I unlocked a new character.
Yep.
But I also started experiencing that getting braids actually kind of like healed something inside of my brain.
How did a hairstyle heal something inside of you?
So when I finally started to embrace my curls and go on a curly hair journey, I had to cut it all off and start over.
Right.
And I didn't expect there to be grief when I cut my hair, because there was just like this innate grief, because choosing my natural hair meant letting go of a version of myself that I basically spent years trying to become. And I guess that would be the archetype of a white girl, because growing up, that's who I was surrounded by, and that was the beauty standard. And so kind of all the white people around me, they had stick straight hair, and, you know, they didn't have curly hairs. And the boys all seemed to like them, you know, the skinny ones with the blonde hair.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that. And so for most of my life, I spent it trying to look like that white archetype. So when I finally stopped straightening my hair and I decided to embrace my natural hair, it felt like I was closing the door on that identity forever.
Oh.
Like I was giving up the last little piece of maybe one day I'll look like them. And that was hard.
Or it also sounds like maybe you gave up a white piece of you.
Yeah, and I talk about a lot, the black side about being mixed in a lot of my content, but I have a white side too. I'm half white.
Right.
And there's a culture that I grew up with that involves that, the people I was surrounded by, and a look of whiteness that I didn't have fully. And so I was still like in this other category.
Right.
And even though I was never ever told I was ugly or I was shamed for my hair growing up, I definitely knew that I felt different. And so even though I did outgrow a lot of those ideals of beauty that were rooted in whiteness, there was still something inside of me that grieved that I would never look like them.
Okay, so then what changed when you got the braids?
Okay, so when I got braids, I saw myself with long hair again, but this time it didn't feel like I was imitating anyone or trying to be white. It felt like I was stepping into something I never realized I was allowed to have, which was having long, beautiful hair while still having curly hair and protecting it. It was truly like the perfect combo of straightening my hair, having curly hair, wearing wigs, and it was amazing. But I also kind of feel like, I don't know, you guys tell me, but I feel like I look more ethnic. Like I don't look black or white. I definitely look mixed.
Yeah.
And I look like me. And so having long hair that was both rooted in my culture and being long and beautiful, I don't know, just healed something in me I didn't know I was aching for.
Okay.
And I felt like a new version of me that felt grown up and authentic and integrated.
I love that, especially that you use the word integrated because that's the whole goal, right? With OSDD, with healing, with trying to get all my parts on the same team. And, I can so relate to feeling fractured with my ethnicity, but also my sexuality, the way I've learned to perform different versions of myself just to survive. So I love that a hairstyle gave you that feeling again. And so it really sounds like that moment with the braids is bigger than just a hairstyle.
Oh, absolutely. Because it didn't feel like my white and black parts were fighting. They were finally pointing in the same direction. I guess until my whole semblance of my mixed identity, you guys, shattered when I went to go take out those braids.
Okay, what happened?
Okay, so here's a crazy story for you guys, so buckle in. So I did all of my research about braids, when I got my braids, how to clean your scalp, how to ease the itchiness, how to make them last and look beautiful. And I was very adamant about doing it right. I still have like this insecurity of like, am I even allowed to have braids? Well, if I'm gonna have braids, I gotta make sure I'm educated and know the cultural significance of everything, but also the maintenance.
Okay.
So I had those original braids in for about 6 weeks, and then it came time to take them out. And that is the step that apparently I did not do enough research on because it was a total disaster.
Okay, walk us through what happened when you went to take out your braids.
Okay, so when you go to take out your braids, it's like an hours and hours ordeal. And so when I was doing my research, it said, you cut the synthetic hair, you unbraid your hair, and then you detangle.
Okay.
And it did say in all my research, detangling was super important because what happens is when your braids are in for a while, your hair is naturally falling out, but they have nowhere to fall out to.
Right.
So you have to detangle because there's hairs just kind of stuck in there that fell out that you have to get rid of.
Okay.
Now for me, as a white girl, detangling for me means get your hair all wet and comb it through. As a curly girl, we know that you don't brush your hair dry.
Yep.
So to me, I wetted my hair once I took out my braids and I started combing it through. And I was like, oh, cool, not that much hair is coming out. I guess I didn't lose a lot of shed hair. I guess I'm different and built better than everybody else.
Okay.
Then the next step, it said to use conditioner to kind of soften the buildup because I have a lot of gel in my hair in these braids. So you have to use the conditioner to kind of like soften it and make sure it comes out.
Right.
Well, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'll just do that in the shower. I'll go shampoo and conditioner like I normally do.
Okay.
But what I failed to forget is that there's so much gel in my hair that by putting water in it, it kind of just soaks it all up again and creates this glue. I didn't realize that was happening.
Oh, no.
And then because I didn't dry detangle it, all of those shed hair pieces just got stuck in there and glued together. And then because I refused to do this conditioner step, nothing got softened. So I go in the shower, I put water on it, I start scrubbing with shampoo.
Yeah.
You guys, immediately it starts
clumping up into giant mats that I can't even get my hands through. No, oh my God. Okay, what did you do? Yes, and so immediately I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, everything is going wrong. I couldn't even get my hands through. You guys, it was literally a tumbleweed, a knot ball, like something I've never experienced before, that I turned off the water and I get out of the shower and I'm just like, oh no, this is really bad. Oh my gosh, did you cry? Did you panic? So something really weird happened is I didn't really panic. I kind of feel like I had this weird outer body experience where I felt something inside of me either take over or armor up because I couldn't cry, I couldn't panic. And it was like for the first time I was feeling my body go into flight or fight. And I was just like, okay, we need to fix this. Like it was problem solving immediately without even feeling it. So again, part of my superpower, but I immediately stay calm and I'm like, okay, well, we got to figure this out. Okay, so then what did you do next? So right away, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm immediately accepting, oh, I might have to cut off all my hair. I might have to shave my head.
No.
I have had in the past like knot balls like this, and that's what you have to do. You have to cut it out. So I'm just like, okay, well, before we get to that step, let's see if I'm able to untangle it. So I'm looking up ways to like see how to go about it. And I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I was like, I need a professional. I am unequipped to handle this.
Yep.
So I start looking up hair salons. And, you know, I look up, I think, knot removal, like hair knot removal. And all these fancy, hair salons in Beverly Hills were popping up. And I'm like, no, I'm not about to go spend $500 at some nice salon.
Yeah.
I think I need an auntie in Inglewood who knows how to handle braids, who like knows what I'm going through. That's who I need to contact.
Okay.
So what I did is I actually looked up people who undo dreadlocks. They're like lock and braid undoers.
Oh.
So I found somebody on Yelp who undoes locks and I messaged them. And mind you guys, I failed to mention, this is at 3 a.m. So taking out my braids took about 2 to 3 hours.
Oh my God.
This is now 3 a.m. that I'm having this hair crisis. I text this lady's number and I'm like, hey, so I have a giant knot in my head and I don't know how to get it out. And it kind of feels like a dreadlock at this point. Can you help? And I kind of just am like, okay, I hope she responds.
Okay.
And so at this time, I also saw in my research that it said, don't let your hair get dry because once it dries and glues together like that, you're screwed. So it just said, keep the glue wet, keep it glue. So I just start putting in olive oil in my hair, all this conditioner. My hair is smelling so weird. It is so silky
No.
and still all tangled, but like I'm trying to keep it wet because I'm like, please, I hope she messages me in the morning that she's able to get this done because I also had plans and I was absolutely, again, not freaking out, but I'm like, we got to figure this out.
Yep.
And so the funniest part is at night at like 4 a.m. and as I'm going to bed, I start looking up on Pinterest short curly hairstyles and I literally start Googling like short pixie cuts because my brain, I could feel, was trying to protect me and keep me calm of like, see, if we have to cut off all our hair, it could still look cute. Don't panic. Everything's going to be okay.
Oh my gosh.
Even if we go bald. Although I don't have a good head shape for going bald, so I was hoping that wasn't the case, but there was still a chance that my hair could have been saved.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so then did she finally message you back at 3 a.m? So this lady, thank goodness, calls me at 7 a.m. and she says, send me photos, let me see the damage. So
Good.
I take these photos and I'm showing 2 photos here of just the 2 giant mats on my head.
Ooh.
And I send them to her and she says, it's still kind of hard to see what's going on in these photos, but basically it's going to be a 2-day process because we got to soak all that up and then I got to untangle. So why don't you come over to my apartment later today and we can get started? And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go and I head to her apartment.
Wait, her apartment? Like where she lives?
Yep. So this was a Sunday, and I know she has a hair salon, but it was a Sunday. It was an emergency. I was panicking, and thankfully she welcomed me into her home.
Oh, good.
And I arrive, and she looks in my hair. She starts feeling it, and she kind of says like, oh, good. You kept it conditioned. We don't have to make this a 2-day thing. We can kind of get in here and hack at it because it doesn't need to soak as much. So I'm like,
Okay.
thank heavens for all of that olive oil I soaked my hair with overnight.
For real.
Did she say how bad the damage was? Were you going to have to be bald after all? we couldn't tell how bad it was because we didn't know how much of that stuck hair was the shed hair, how much of my own hair was tangled, if we'd have to cut anything. So she was just like, well, let's hack at it and see. And so again, my brain is so armored up at this point that I'm just like, go for it. Do what you got to do. So she takes a comb and like a freaking machete to wood, just starts hacking at my hair, tugging at my hair, and going to town.
Oh my gosh.
So she was just like, well, settle in. We're going to be here for a few hours. So we start chatting, and this is where the story takes a turn.
Uh-oh.
Because once this unbraider starts talking to me, she starts triggering me in ways that I didn't even know existed in my own brain.
Ooh, triggering you how?
Okay, so this hairstylist, she was an older Black woman.
Okay.
And she immediately starts saying just every trigger word about me being mixed. So right away, she starts telling my hair, she's like, okay, so you had braids? Well, you have white hair. So like with your white hair, it's a little bit trickier with the takedown process. And I kind of be like, oh, well, I'm mixed. You know, I had to defend myself. And she's like, I don't care that you're mixed. You have white hair. She's like, you may have curly hair, but you don't have ethnic hair. You have white hair. And so right away, I start stiffening up because it's like, what's happening? I didn't like the way that she said that I have white hair. You know, I felt like she was kind of yelling at me in a way. And then she says, well, yeah, if you're mixed though, your mama must be white. I can tell that your mom's white. And again, I start stiffening up because I'm just like, well, why? And she's like, well, look at you. You look more white, but you act white. She goes, on the phone, I thought you were a white girl. She's like, I literally thought I was talking to a white woman and I was scared to take you as a client because I thought you were about to come into this appointment and tell me what to do and start yelling at me like a white lady.
No.
And she's kind of like being a little bit lighthearted about it and jokey.
Okay.
But I couldn't take it as a joke. I again start stiffening up because she's telling me, well, even if you're Black, your mom must be white, you know, as if I'm still doing something wrong. And then she goes, and you talk white. She goes, you do not. She goes, even if you are Black, you do not sound Black. Your Black daddy must have not taught you how to talk because you talk white.
Oh.
And she just kept going on. And it was like, if all of my triggers were on a bingo card, she would have gotten a bingo in less than 5 minutes because she was just hitting everything that I'm so sensitive about.
No. Okay, so how'd that make you feel?
Here's the weird thing is I get those all the freaking time on the internet. Like I talk about being mixed all the time on the internet. These are comments I get tenfold on my comment sections.
Yep.
But they're on the internet where they don't hurt. It's just somebody on the screen, like kind of sometimes they do it as rage bait even.
Yeah.
But when I'm sitting in person, it stings more, you know? And I felt myself getting defensive and sensitive. And I could feel that one of my most heartbreaking split screens was happening in real time.
Okay, can you explain what a split screen is to anybody who might not know?
Yeah, so I talk about it a little bit over on my TikTok, so make sure to go follow me at JCAaron_. But basically, a split screen is when I call one of my parts starting to co-front. It's essentially where I can feel that I have two parts going on in my brain because I start getting differing feelings about things, or I start having like an internal argument or different opinions on something.
Right.
And so I can feel myself start split screening because there was one part of me as I'm sitting in the chair that did want to laugh along, that did want to be like, girl, I know, or like start code switching or wanted to play into it more.
Okay.
But there was a part over here that did not take it as that she was joking. There was a part over here that immediately wanted to cry, that immediately wanted to sulk and just bury herself into invisibility. And that part was the one that kind of stopped talking and armoring up and wanting to apologize.
Wait, apologize for what?
That's the thing. I wasn't sure yet because when I get split screened, it's often very confusing and overwhelming because things are happening in real time. And I start getting, different emotions on all sides of the spectrum. And when that internal dialogue is happening, while a person is speaking to you, tugging at your hair and pulling at you, you don't really get the luxury of doing parts work in real time. I don't get to sit there and be like, actually, do you mind if I talk to the ladies in my brain real quick? Hey, what's going on? Okay, we're sad. All right, tell me about it. What's going on? What's your story? I can't do that in real life. So I couldn't identify which part was talking, where it was coming from, what they were feeling. I just knew sitting in that chair, I'm stuck in flight or fight mode from my hair or horror story, and that whatever I was feeling, I would just have to deal with all of those feelings later. Wow. Okay, so we'll get back to those feelings in a bit. So how did the whole unmatting of your hair go? So I was there for about 3 hours where she's just hacking at my hair. And after a while, my braider and I, we totally softened to each other and we just chatted the whole time. It ended up being absolutely wonderful, you know? When she was telling me I was so well-spoken and I talk white, I was telling her that like, oh, I'm a journalist and I talk on camera a lot.
Yeah.
She was telling me that she's a poet and she ends up handing me her laptop and I'm reading her poetry. She shows me some of her artwork. We had a beautiful bonding moment. Like it was totally fine. And it's crazy how I thought like, oh my God, at the beginning of this appointment, I thought like, is she about to be enemy number one, hitting all my mixed triggers and bingos? But no, after those 3 hours, it was a delightful time and my hair was untangled and I was done with getting the mat out.
Okay.
But I look over at the table and at the carnage of what was removed from my head. And I'm seeing for the first time what the damage was, and I audibly gasped.
Oh no, what did you see?
There were 2 humongous clumps of hair on the table. So big that I looked at it and I grabbed the sides of my head and I was like, do I even have hair on my head? Am I bald?
No!
Because that is so much freaking hair that just came out.
Oh, so you lost a ton of hair?
I still didn't know because that, again, could have all been shed hair. It could have been my own hair. I wouldn't know until the next steps of the process.
Okay, so then what were the next steps?
So she told me I would have to go to a cosmetologist ASAP for a treatment and assessment because basically, even if I lost a lot of hair, I would have to cut it maybe, but also the way she was hacking at it, it changed the texture of my hair.
Okay.
So I would need some type of protein treatment and possibly like, you know, again, a haircut depending on the damage. So she actually recommended me her daughter who also does braids. And she's like, talk to my daughter. She's a black stylist. She knows what it's like working on your hair, people unbraiding where they go wrong. Trust me, like, she'll know what to do.
Okay, that's good at least.
And so I call up her daughter, I tell her what's going on. The next day I get a protein treatment and I think a bonding treatment. And I tell her don't cut my hair because I cut my own hair and I'll assess it myself. But finally I was like, this was all within like maybe 48 hours. And I was finally ready to look at the damage.
Okay, you're killing me. How bad was it?
So I go home, I do my own hair exactly how I normally would do it with my own products, and I look in the mirror.
Yeah?
And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but you guys, there was some serious damage.
Oh, okay.
So first I noticed I was noticeably less blonde because I think when she was pulling at my hair, all of my blonde highlights are naturally the weakest parts of my hair because bleaching just makes them weaker.
Yeah.
So she just broke off all of the blonde parts. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm more brunette now.
Oh.
And then the sides of my hair, where obviously the mats were significantly shorter. So like down here, my length was still maintained. Up here was short. And it was like the middle part of my hair broke off. And that was upsetting because I just spent the whole past year trying to grow it out, especially in that area.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking in the mirror upset that like, dang it, I'm kind of at square one again. So I'm gonna put some photos up here on the screen for the visual version, but here's what my hair was getting to where it was full and voluminous and I was getting some length.
Yeah.
And now here's the photo of the after where, you know, you can clearly see some volume loss. You can tell it's less full. I did have to cut it. And it's kind of like if I'm standing with light behind me, you could see through it.
Yeah, but I mean, at least you still had hair.
Yeah, and I still looked okay, and so I was fine with that.
Okay, so phew, the hair saga finally comes to an end. Were you so relieved?
Nope, because as soon as I cut that last strand and I gave my hair one last toss,
Yeah.
I finally went into my bedroom and I bawled my eyes out because it was the first time in the past, 3 days that I realized, oh, I never cried since this whole ordeal began. I got so into flight or fight of just get through it, my brain protecting me from feeling those bad feelings.
Yeah.
That once it felt like it finally ended, it was like, boom, my body immediately switched off that flight or fight and I was able to start processing what happened.
Wow.
So I wasn't relieved because now I was catching up on the panic of getting my hair matted, on the worry that I would have to cut it off, on the grief that my hair is damaged and that I lost a hair of growth and that my texture changed and my hair is thinner. And so it was like all of it happening at once.
Yeah.
And then I also started finally feeling those feelings of those parts that got split screened with me during that appointment. And that's when I had to deal with the emotions and perspectives about being mixed. And that felt a whole lot bigger than just the hairs on my head that I lost. Wow. Well, we're definitely going to be diving deeper into those feelings in Act 2. And in fact, we're going to be hearing from one of the parts herself that you got split screened with that day. So stay tuned, because in Act 2, we're going to be bringing out College JC herself to discuss why she got activated during this hair story nightmare. But for now, let's take a little break for our nervous systems and head into our intermission segment. So we will be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back from the break. It's time for our intermission game we're calling Split Ends and Opinions. Because if there's one thing my hair and my OSDD have in common, it's that there are multiple parts involved and none of them fully agree. So here's how this works. JC, I've collected about a dozen photos of ourselves and our eras throughout the years, representing different times, versions of ourselves, and hair colors, with some questionable decisions along the way. Ooh, this should be interesting. So you, Healing JC, you are our most integrated self. You're going to be speaking on behalf of the system and rate these old hairstyles. Let's do it. All right, so some of these will be iconic, some might be crimes, and some might be trauma-coded, but all will be judged and you'll be helping me out. So let's get into Split Ends and Opinions, the only hair game where the commentary is coming from all of the ladies that live in my brain. Okay, so in this photo, you look like you're in about elementary school, and on the left, you have some pigtail braids, but on the right, you have a large, poofy, straightened hairstyle that seems to be going against the weather. Tell me about this one and rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. So this, of course, if you don't know, is the #1 video I've ever posted across social media where I show that I got my hair chemically straightened and went to school photos with it. And it's funny that these two school photos are right next to each other, because on the left one, you could see that I'm a little bit more mixed. Like, you could see that I look black. And then the next year, I go and I get my hair chemically straightened, and I'm more white presenting. So I think it's funny that these two photos are right up next to each other. Yeah. But I would like to defend my mom on this, because my mom got so much hate on this original TikTok where I, talked about it, and people were like, your mom sent you to school looking like that? She should have done more research. First of all, I asked for this hair. I asked for my hair to get straightened, but my hair just isn't meant to be straightened, and it poofed up, and I ended up looking like Gossamer from Looney Tunes. I would give this hairstyle specifically probably a 2, because I remember when I left the salon, I felt amazing. And then as soon as I got to school and took this photo, it puffed up and people were teasing me, and I ended up hating it. So I would give it a 2, but maybe I'll give it a 3 because it ended up giving me my most viral video ever and launched my social media career. But I guess speaking for that half or that part, I would give it a 2. Definitely an iconic photo, along with this next photo, which shows you with a large poofy afro, it looks like. Tell me about this photo and how do you rate it? Yes. Okay, so this is a photo of preteen JC, where I learned that if I brushed out my hair, I could kind of have an afro, and it ended up being a little bit of a party trick. And I loved this hair because I thought it matched my personality and it was fun and silly. I don't think I ever wore it out like this, but I remember it just feeling like, oh my gosh, I have fun textured hair. How cool. So I would give this one a 3, mainly because I don't ever think I wore it out, but it did at least feel like I had a unique type of hair, and that was cool enough. But I still post this on my social media to this day, and people get a kick out of it because they're like, that is classic preteen JC right there. I love it. Now, this next photo, you're a little bit older, it looks like, and you've got long straight hair with some braids on your crown. Tell me about this photo and how do you rate it on a scale of 1 to 5? Yes, this is middle school JC, and this is where I got in the habit of waking up at 7 in the morning to fry the shit out of my hair with a flat iron. Again, just to make sure I had those stick straight curls like everybody else. I do love this photo because I have like a little bit of the half braids going on. So I love looking at this now because I'm just like, look, that's like another mixed hairstyle where I have half braids and half straight hair. But I remember that I still hated my hair at this point. I remember that it just wasn't the same texture as everybody else I was seeing. And it was so damaged from the flat iron that my bangs, I could literally take and like break off.
No.
And so my hair, that was probably the longest my hair ever got. It never grew below my boobs because it would just break off from the damage.
Yeah.
But I did love straightening my hair because, I don't know, I felt like I looked cute. So I would give this one probably a 4. I like this hairstyle, and I'm sure at the time I felt as pretty as I probably could have.
Oh, definitely. And you did look very pretty. And in this next photo, you also have straight hair, but it looks like a very bright shade of red. Tell me about this photo.
So this is high school JC, and this is where I started experimenting with dyeing my hair. But of course, I was using the box dyes from CVS. And so I remember I wanted like a brown shade with hints of red. And I ended up accidentally just fully dyeing my hair red. Like it was the total like, honey, you missed Auburn big time. So I had red hair for a little bit and it was a vibe. I actually really loved this hair because once I started learning that I could dye my hair and change up my look that way, that was endgame because I never stopped from there. So I would give this one I remember feeling like a 5. I remember loving this hair, so I'm gonna give this hair a 5 for my fire truck engine air. Ooh, what the heck was that? Fire truck engine red hair. Golly. There we go. Well, I love the red on you, but in this next photo, you go the opposite way and you have a dark black bob. Tell us about that. Okay, so this one's interesting because this is college JC, and I started realizing that I could visually represent how I was feeling by my appearance. So whenever I dye my hair really dark, it's because I am going through a really dark time. So sadly, this is college JC, and you guys know I was going through a hard time, and I dyed my hair jet black. But what I also made a mistake with this hair was this was my big Pinterest era, and all of the hair that I was putting were like bobs. I loved bobs. So I cut my hair into this bob, but you guys, I don't have the hair texture for a bob. So when it wouldn't be straight, it would be too short to put into a ponytail. So I remember I had to do like 2 wonky buns at the gym, and I had to do my hair every day in order to have that style. And I remember it being miserable. So I had black hair, I was unhappy, I had short hair, and I hated it. So this one was like a 0. I thought I looked cool and mysterious and moody, but in reality, I know that college JC was just feeling sad and was trying to represent it. So this one's a 1, unfortunately. But you know, it does make my eyes pop. I'll give you that. Yeah, that's one thing too, is that like from the outside, it looks great. But again, you're representing the system right now and telling how you felt during that time. That really gives some good backstory there. But in this next photo, you have long straight hair, but it looks to be a nice shade of golden, perhaps? How do you rate this one? So this is Housewife JC, and this is one of the photos. If you heard in my last episode, I was talking about how I didn't remember a lot of Housewife JC's era because I didn't take a lot of photos. But then I found an archive of photos my mom took, and this was one of them. And it kind of brought back a lot of memories because I'm like, I forgot I had like yellow hair. Like I straight up had golden hair. I was still straightening it, and I don't remember much about my hair during this period, but this was right before I ended up cutting it all off and starting my curly hair journey. And so I remember with this photo specifically that I wasn't happy with my hair anymore. I was like, I don't like the color. I don't like the cut. I'm ready to go on a curly hair journey. And so I would give this look a 3 because it was kind of like the precipice of starting my curly hair journey and starting to embrace my natural hair and also getting sick of straightening it for like 2 hours a day. You guys, it would take hours to straighten my hair. Like from start to finish, 3 hours. I was so sick of doing that. But I still like straightening my hair, so I would give this look a 3. But the other crazy thing too is right after this, I dyed my hair dark because that's when the breakup happened. So again, crazy how visually I was trying to represent how I felt.
Yeah, so in between these gaps, you end up cutting your hair, then you end your relationship, you dye your hair black, or a shade of brown, I think it was. But now this next photo, you go back to blonde, but it ends up turning to be a white, puffy afro type of texture. How do you rate this look?
Okay, so this is LAJC, so this is you.
Yeah.
But what happened was we learned how to dye our own hair, and so we started doing it ourselves, and it started off as much more like mixed colors like this.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I got lazy. I stopped foiling my hair. So when I would go to like bleach my regrowth, it started just blending into everything.
Yeah.
And over time, it just became a bleached head of hair, and there was no dimension. And I very specifically remember it was Thanksgiving where one of my aunts said like, "Oh, you're rocking the white hair look." And I was like, "White hair? What are you talking about?" And it was like I looked in the mirror and I was completely blind to the fact that I had a head of white hair, and with the glass shape that I had, I looked like a grandmother. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can't bleach my hair anymore. This is not good." So I would give this look a 3 because I still felt good. I was loving the big curly hair.
Okay.
But I lost all the dimension and my hair was getting so damaged that this white hair era was short-lived because I was about to have to shave my head off once again. Or my hair, not my head. You guys get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's my bad for over bleaching my hair. It definitely caused some damage. But then we wanted to go brown, I believe. But why do we have this next photo of you with orange hair? Okay, so after the white hair disaster, I was like, I have to go back to dark hair just to like get my hair healthy again. But I wasn't
Right.
sure which shade I wanted to dye my hair. So what I did was I used this thing called Overtone, and it's kind of like semi-permanent hair dye where
Okay.
you put it in and it fades out over the course of a month. So I used this like really dark brown Overtone color, and it faded into this orange color. And so in this photo, it's like a braid out. I wasn't straightening my hair anymore, but I actually was rocking the orange hair for a little bit, for like 2 weeks, because I actually really liked it. I was like, wait, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna wash my hair for 2 weeks because I kind of like this orange color. And so I started doing like fake freckles to really bring that in. I felt like a little red bone. This
Yep.
one was like a 5 because I knew it wasn't permanent. I was like, I don't think I would ever dye my hair orange for any length of time, but to have it for funsies for 2 weeks with fake freckles, I loved it. I would give this look a 5, even though I probably would never do it again.
Yep.
Well, maybe you could one day because it does look pretty cute on you. But the next hairstyle is you with dark brown hair and your iconic curly hair silhouette. Tell me about this photo and how do you rate it on a scale of 1 to 5? I did, and because this part here, I don't know if I've ever talked about, this is a part I call zombie JC. This was the part that started getting so depressed, that started giving up on life. And again, I didn't realize I was doing it, but that was reflected in my hair color because I said I need to go super dark
Yeah.
and super moody. So I dyed my hair this dark brown, almost black color. But let me vent real quick.
Okay.
I hated when I dyed my hair this color because everybody online was like, you look so much better with this hair. They're like,
No.
your eyes pop, your skin looks amazing. You need to keep this hair color.
Oh.
And I remember being so mad about it and not knowing why, but I know why. It's because I wasn't happy and I dyed my hair that color because I was sad. And now people are telling me
Yeah.
I look the best when I was like, but I feel awful. And I started to learn that I didn't feel good when I had black hair or brown hair because I
Yeah.
felt like I was not as fun. I wasn't as bubbly. And that representation just didn't feel like me. And so it bothered me when people are like, you look better, because I'm like, well, I don't feel better, but thanks for telling me my eyes look prettier. So this hair, I would give it a 2 because
Ooh.
I can now objectively say, yes, I look great with dark brown hair. I get that it makes my eyes pop,
Yeah.
but I also know that I'm not feeling good when I have that hair. And it
Yeah.
doesn't reflect my own personality. And so for that, I would have to give it a 2 because I know that this zombie JC kind of just really spiraled the drain there. And if you go back and watch any of my YouTube videos of when I have my brown hair, that is when I'm at my lowest. And again, crazy how all that's just carried on the strands on my hair. Yeah, and also crazy how much our personality is reflected in our hair as well, even through dyeing our hair brown. So that's very insightful to know. But then after this era, you kind of go back to your roots, and with the same hair shape, you now have blonde and brown highlights, and it's this beautiful mix. Tell me about this. So this is me. This is Healing JC, and this is right after I finished my trauma treatment program. I understood that I had ladies in my brain,
Yep.
and I got a new zest for life where I finally understood, wait, I'm going to be okay. Like, I'm going to survive this. I don't need the dark brown hair anymore. So I went to my cousin Jillian, who's an incredible hairstylist. If you guys are in the Orange County area, look up at Done by Jillian. She's wonderful. She got me to go from this like dark brown to using my natural hair color and having some highlights. And I felt so good in this hair. This one was a 5 out of 5 because this hair color just feels like the most me.
Yeah.
I don't care if it doesn't bring out my features. I don't care if it doesn't look as good as other hairstyles. I feel the most naturally myself with this hair color because it's the closest to my natural hair color. It's the closest to the hair that I grew up with. And I was starting to look in the mirror for the first time during this era. So again, go check out previous episodes if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I found it hard to look in the mirror because I never recognized myself. And so getting this combo of like blonde and brown hair, I could look in the mirror and go, oh, that's me. That's JC.
I love that. And with this last photo, it is the most up-to-date photo because it is you with your curly boho braids.
That's also me now. That is integrated/healing JC. And that is the whole point of this video, that in a way I kind of look at this photo and I think, oh, that's the me that I'm stepping into. That is the integrated version of all of my parts, bringing together all of these different hairstyles and colors and representations of how I'm feeling from the inside and showing it through my hair. Because even just experiencing this hair journey, this mini hair journey we've been on right here, I didn't realize how many memories were tied to my hair and how just by visually representing that through a hairstyle or color, you can see where I am in life and how I'm feeling. So this one's a 5 out of 5 for sure. 10 out of 10, actually. This is the best one so far. And you guys better believe I will be doing more braids in the future.
I love that. But that concludes our game of split ends and decisions. And honestly, it was really sweet seeing all of those eras of my hair again. You know, every style, every color, every chaotic phase. They really do carry all these memories that I forgot were living inside of me. And as fun as it is to like laugh at some of the past decisions and colors I've chosen, my hair has been holding a lot more than just box dye and bad haircuts. It holds all of the history of me. So I appreciate you sharing that. But in Act 2, we'll be bringing on another part of me, which will be College JC, to talk about that deeper story that my hair was carrying during this hair horror story. But for you, Healing JC, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Yep, but we'll have you exit stage right, and when we return, we're bringing our next leading lady into the spotlight. So stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the stage, another lady that lives in my brain. I'd like to introduce you to a part that you may be familiar with, but haven't officially met, and that's College JC. Now, she has been discussed in my Shadow Brain series over on YouTube. She's been talked about throughout this podcast, but today she's going to be sharing with us why she got triggered during that hair appointment and some of the intense feelings behind it. So welcome to the show, JC.
Yay, thanks so much.
Now, Healing JC told us the story of unbraiding our hair, it getting matted into an untangleable knot, and having to go to a professional to get it fixed. And she mentioned that in that experience, a lot of feelings and parts started to surface. So were you one of those parts?
I was.
Okay, so then when this whole hair debacle was going down, at what point did you get activated? So when our hair first started matting, I don't know who got activated. I don't know if it was a protector part that took over and refused to let us feel. I don't know if it was my nervous system going into flight or fight and protecting our brain. All I know is that I didn't get activated until our hair braider started questioning our mixed identity. And so that's when I came forward. But I wasn't the only one.
Ooh, okay. So did multiple parts start coming forward?
Yes, in a way. So let me briefly explain the concept of teams that I have in my system. So essentially, I have a lot of ladies living in my brain. You saw some photos of them just now.
Yep.
And while they're all different versions of me,
there is a lot of overlap in certain habits or feelings because, again, they're all me throughout time.
Okay.
So my system has these teams of parts where it's not just like one part feels a certain way about something, but multiple feel that way. And they kind of band together and fight the other team in my brain.
Okay. Can you give us an example?
Sure. So let's say body image. I've struggled with my weight and my body image my whole life.
Right.
And I have parts that are always focused on losing weight. And I have parts that are a little bit more neutral or even body positive. So
Okay.
in my head, when I go to eat, it sounds like this in my brain. You know, high school JC will say, we don't need to eat right now. Let's restrict and save some calories. But then dancing JC will say, what? No, we're hungry and it's lunchtime. It's okay to eat. And then housewife JC will say, okay, but how many calories are in your lunch? Like, if you go over that, we're gonna have to go for a walk later. And then LAJC over here will say, who cares? We look great. We feel great. We don't need to lose any more weight. Just let me eat my dang lunch.
Yeah.
So you get different parts with the same goal, and they kind of form these teams. And so when a team gets activated, what I picture in my head is, I don't know, like a large conference room with one team on this side with a microphone and the other team on this side with a microphone. And they kind of just pipe in with their reasonings like a big debate.
Okay, I see. So you have teams about being mixed?
Yep, I have teams of parts that are more sensitive or defensive to it, and then I have parts that are more boisterous or flippant about it. And to be
Okay.
clear, I don't have the full team roster for everything. You know, this healing journey is a lot, you guys.
Yeah.
But I do know that some teams are bigger than others, and that's just the way that it works for my brain. So on that day, getting my hair undone and untangled was when our mixed identity was questioned. So that's when we had a mixed team face-off.
Ooh, how interesting. Okay, which parts were on the teams for this?
I won't get into too much detail because I fear I may have overcomplicated things enough. So for the sake of identity for the rest of the story, I can tell you this. One team feels confident in our mixed identity and like how I present online where I'm like, the comments don't bother me. And they were comfortable with the braider teasing us because I wanted to laugh along and I wanted to joke and treat it as inclusion rather than exclusion.
Okay.
But I, as college JC, was on the team whose feelings were hurt. And there was one other person on my team that also mainly stepped forward and fronted. And
Ooh.
that person was preteen JC. And
Oh.
so I'll be speaking for her experience as well, since we were the main two from our teams to get triggered.
Okay, so let's work with that.
So can you tell us how preteen school JC feels about being mixed? Here's the thing. She doesn't. She doesn't
Oh.
really have much concept about being black or white or ethnicity in general. She's in elementary school. Like, this is a sixth grader we're talking about. Kids don't really have those type of racial biases yet.
Yeah.
But what she did feel deeply about was her hair. And hair is such an important thing for mixed people like myself.
How so?
Well, hair is where our mixedness shows up first. You know, my hair has always been the place where my mixed identity shows itself
Yeah.
before I could even tell people or before I even understood what being half black meant. So even at a
Yeah.
young age, my hair carried trauma because that made me feel different than everybody else. You know, I would go to sleepovers with all of my girlfriends, and it became an activity where they would brush out my hair into that big poofy afro like I just showed you guys.
Yeah.
And we'd laugh and we think it's funny. And, you know, it was a party trick, but also deep down, it kind of made me deeply insecure because it's like, why am I the only one whose hair can do that? And I remember there was another time I was spending the night at a friend's house and she was brushing my hair with one of those like barrel roll brushes.
Ooh,
And
yep.
it got so tangled in my hair that my friend's mom had to cut my hair out and I was missing a clump again.
Oh,
and so
no.
it was again, it's funny, I made a TikTok about it. So if you ever saw this TikTok, that's why.
Yep, I remember that one.
But so that alone was very traumatic. And again, why that preteen JC got triggered during this event of thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to cut out all my hair again. But also
Yeah.
that same feeling of my hair is a problem. It's too difficult to work with. It needs to be cut. I remember in elementary school for Crazy Hair Day, I'll never forget this. It's a weird core memory I have. I wore
Okay.
my hair brushed out and big, and the principal of my school said, "Whoa, is that real? Looks like you stuck your finger into an electrical outlet." Oh. And I learned from a young age that I was supposed to laugh because that was my defense mechanism for it not hurting my feelings. But really, it was. My hair was different and people laughed at it. And I guess I learned to laugh with them, but really, I was deeply insecure about it. So even from a young age, you always hated your hair? I don't think I hated my hair at this point. I just knew the feelings that it gave me were that it didn't make me feel pretty because all of my friends had the stick straight hair and I wanted to look like them. And I did have these beautiful curls, but I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to embrace them, mainly because it just wasn't the beauty standard.
Yeah.
So starting with preteen JC, she would go to the hair salon and get her hair chemically straightened because that's what I saw. That's how I wanted to look. And even in those appointments, I remember my hairstylist would grab at my hair and she would go, "Whoa, you have a lot of hair. You have ethnic hair. We're going to need 2 boxes for this. Whoa, this is going to take hours for this one."
Yep.
And it was still, even in that appointment, trying to get my hair to look one way, I'm still being told it's different. I'm still feeling like it's a problem of some sort, that I'm inconveniencing my hairstylist because I have so much ethnic hair. And then when I would get my hair chemically straightened, I still didn't look like the other girls. You know, I still didn't have the stick straight hair.
Yeah.
And like that photo from that famous TikTok I was showing you, it would become all big and poofy. And so I just always felt like my hair was the problem of not feeling good. And again, it was weird. I didn't hate it, but it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And so from a very young age, I never saw it as that I'm half black and I'm half white and I face constant microaggressions. That's not the case. It was more so that I just already had this built-in trauma into my hair.
Wow. So is that how preteen JC got activated after taking out the braids that day?
Yes, because she probably got activated in a good way when we got the braids, you know, seeing the long hair, feeling beautiful and attractive. Like that was great for her.
Yeah.
But then when the braiders started hacking at our hair, it made her come forward with sadness.
Oh.
Because it was like every memory stored in those strands started coming through. Where preteen JC didn't hear a professional reacting to a tangle, she heard the messages she grew up swallowing. Things like, your hair is too much, you're too much, this is an inconvenience for me. No matter what we do, you'll still never look like the girls you're trying to look like.
Wow.
And so I was right back into those salon chairs that I was in as a preteen with the brushing, the tugging, the straightening, the comparisons, and the jokes that I pretended didn't hurt, and the grief of not fitting in and the shame of being different long before I even knew what my ethnicity even meant. And so at that appointment, every bit of unprocessed pain got yanked to the surface. And so it wasn't just the matting of my hair that needed detangling. It was that little preteen JC who learned to see her own hair as a problem.
Wow. So all that trauma that preteen JC carried in her hair got brought to the surface.
Yep. So it was preteen JC who wanted to cry and who wanted the whole process to be over with and who just wanted to feel pretty again.
Yeah.
But it was me, college JC, who was the one that got defensive about it and just wanted to armor up and shut down.
Okay. So tell us more about your experience, because
from what I recall, we did not do our hair much during college. Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure my hair froze into the shape of a pulled back bun back then because that's all I wore during college. Like, I had a uniform where I just put on my USC sweatshirt, threw my hair in a bun. That's all I did for 3 years.
Yep.
So when I got activated, it had nothing to do with my hair.
Oh.
I got activated because of the comments about being mixed.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more.
So middle school and high school is when I remember my actual ethnicity, you know, coming into question and when I became aware that I was half black or white.
Okay.
And I remember, you know, in history class in high school, we learned the term mulatto and, you know, people started using that to tease me. And I remember I joined the school basketball team and they'd make fun of me for not being black enough. And, you know, friends started giving me nicknames like Oreo or African, like stupid high school things.
Yep.
And, you know, so those parts in my brain are the parts that were probably on the good side of being mixed because they could take the joke. They thought it was kind of funny and they were coming into terms with our identity.
Yeah.
And because probably back then I wasn't facing any blatant racism necessarily. Okay, that makes sense. So then, was it in college that it became a negative thing? Yeah, because it was when I started applying for college that I started recognizing that being mixed was a little bit more questionable.
Oh.
So I remember on one of my college applications, I clicked the box for black because you could only click one box, which was really stupid.
Right.
So I clicked black, and because I was trying to get into a specific journalism program, I had to have a separate in-person interview for my college application.
Okay.
And I remember when I showed up, the person questioned it, not in a bad way, but kind of like oh, you selected that you're black? And I was like, yes, I'm half black, half white. And they were like, okay. So I was like, is that a problem? Did I not present how I was supposed to present? Like, did I not pass that test? I was concerned.
Oh.
Then, of course, there was the scholarship. So I made a YouTube video, if you guys want to check it out, about some of the struggles I've had of being mixed. And I'll leave it linked down below if you're watching the YouTube version.
Yep.
But basically, in that video, I tell the story where I applied for a Black woman scholarship. And they had this big luncheon of us Black high school seniors, and the winner was going to be announced. And I won it. And the room gasped because when I went up there, you could hear the chatter of she won the Black women's scholarship.
Yeah.
That's not allowed. And so again, I became insecure of like, am I taking up space in a space I'm not supposed to be in? I just became hyper aware that, wait, maybe I'm not allowed to identify this way. And so then finally in college was when I joined the Black Student Union. And I remember I went to 2 meetings my freshman year, and I decided that I don't belong here, and I stopped going.
Wait, why'd you feel like you didn't belong?
I guess I just started feeling like an outsider that was just taking up space that wasn't mine. Like I felt like a colonizer trying to make roots in a culture that I didn't fully participate in. And I always, always, always say that when it comes to my Black friends and family, I am always welcomed and I am always accepted.
Yeah.
But I, on an internal level, just never felt like I belonged. And that was coming from within, because I think what was happening was no matter what, in any Black space that I entered, first of all, I always felt inclined to share that I was mixed. Like I always felt like I had to announce and disclose like, hey, by the way, I'm half Black, like I'm allowed to be here. Like I felt like if I didn't do that, then they would demand that I wasn't and be ousted.
Yeah.
But when I would disclose it and say it, they'd be like, oh yeah, girl, like you're one of us, of course. But then in every single situation without fail, my lack of Blackness is always pointed out. It's always brought up, even simple things like, oh, you don't know this slang? That's because you got a white mama. Oh, you haven't seen this movie? That's because your dad failed to educate you on the classics. Just like little things. And just this weekend, I was out bar hopping with friends. We go to this one bar, and the music they were playing was like Taylor Swift and Katy Perry. So while we're there, I lean into it. I start dancing and singing all the words, having fun.
Yeah.
And my Black friend says, oh, JC's white side is showing. And so it's something that like, it's always just pointed out. It's always brought up, and not maliciously, not exclusionarily, but it's always just brought up. And even if it's in jest, I also just found myself feeling that means I don't belong, that I'm not enough. And so even in the rooms where I was loved and I was welcomed, I still felt uninvited.
Wow.
Not because anybody pushed me out, but because part of me was always waiting to be exposed. I was always waiting for that comment to tell me that I wasn't enough, that I was not Black enough, that I was too white, not cultured enough, not raised right.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't rejection from the outside. It was rejection that I learned to carry inside myself.
Wow. Yeah.
And I guess that quiet fear of being exposed just followed me everywhere since college. And that I would spend my whole life being welcomed into spaces, but never truly feeling entitled to belonging to.
Well, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of mixed people out there can resonate with a lot of those feelings. I often describe it as feeling like a guest with a key where I'm invited inside, but I never really feel fully at home.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then why do you feel like you specifically came forward at this hair appointment?
So college JC is the first one who first started noticing these cultural rules and intellectualizing race for the first time. You know, things that made me not black enough or made me too white or neither.
Okay.
So while preteen JC felt the hair trauma, college JC felt the racial cultural trauma. So when that braider started commenting on my mixed identity, it woke up a part of me that spent all of those years trying to decode how to belong. And in that moment, all the feelings that were coming up were failure, that I failed my black side.
Wait, why do you feel like you failed your black side?
You guys, I can't express enough how much I prepared and studied so hard to have these braids. Like, I tried to do everything right and politically correct with being a white presenting person, having culturally significant hair and knowing that I'm allowed to, but still being prepared to answer any questions.
Yeah.
I was hyper aware that some people would think I'm not allowed to have these braids. And so I was adamant to claim them as something I'm not only allowed to have, but excited to have. And so I tried to do everything right.
Yeah.
So when I failed the last steps of taking out my braids and having it clump up and needing to get professional help, I feel like I failed my culture. So in that chair, hearing her tell me again how white I am and having her, a black woman, fix the mistake that I made, it felt like that was proof that I was never allowed to have them in the first place. So in that chair, hearing her tell me how white my hair is, having her fix my mistake, I guess it just really overall just felt like proof.
Proof of what?
Proof that I had been pretending to belong to something I wasn't built for or belong to, and that the universe exposed me. It was proof that I wasn't careful enough, that I wasn't cultured enough after all, and that I wasn't black enough to honor something that mattered to me. And that tiny failure cracked open every old fear that I'm merely borrowing from this identity when it serves me, but never fully belonging to it. And it was about all of the parts on all of the teams that constantly feels like one misstep away from losing my place in my culture.
Wow.
From being reminded that I'm too white for this, too ignorant for this. So I guess in that appointment, it just became evidence of this story that I've been carrying my whole life. That no matter how hard I try, I'm always the one to drop the cultural baton that I'm so desperate to hold. JC, I'm so sorry that you feel that way, but I mean, I also completely understand. So then what was your response during that appointment when she's saying those things to you? So I was the one who wanted to apologize for her, which seems silly now. Like, why would I say sorry for having white hair and messing up?
Yeah.
But instead, I just started shutting down. I made us go quiet and I started silently shaming ourselves. I also wanted to cry like preteen JC, but I just couldn't. I armored up. I turned off my personality and I wasn't, softened until we got onto another subject. And it's so weird that I tried to carry that shame and that guilt during that appointment with me for weeks. So even beyond, getting my hair unbraided, I was still shaming myself for so long. But it didn't last.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more? Why were you shaming yourself and why didn't it last?
Sure. So I feel like in the past, a situation like this was validation for all those insecurities around me being mixed.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to keep shaming myself because that kept establishing my own biases that I've had my whole life, that I just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But for the first time in my life, you guys, I'm 32 years old, having the same story in my head.
Okay.
I started feeling the opposite.
The opposite of what?
I guess the opposite of shame, because in the next few days, I started telling some of my friends, and specifically some of my black friends, what happened with this whole hair horror story. And I was armored up. I was ready to defend myself, apologize, accept that I failed them, accept to be teased that, I wasn't black enough to know all this. But no, every single person, they gave me advice and tips for next time. Or they commiserated with their own hair horror stories. And they just kept saying, well, next time you get braids, try this or do this instead.
Yeah.
And so I was so expecting to be excluded and maintain that shame that it didn't occur to me that I could be included even more. And I don't know, that was so surprising. Was it surprising because it made you realize that it was you telling yourself these things all along?
100%, because it became painfully clear for the first time in my existence that I was the one enforcing these rules I thought everyone else was judging me by.
Yeah.
The exclusion that I feared was never coming from my community. It was always coming from me. It was coming from all of these parts and the ladies in my brain that held onto this fear.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until that moment that I was so in my head about being mixed for forever that it's all I could think about, that I would walk into a room aware that I'm white presenting, so feeling the need to announce that I'm part black so people would know.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that all those other people are probably like, okay, who cares? But then when they bring it up and it hurts my feelings that they mention it, I didn't realize I was so aware that my feelings would be hurt because I was constantly expecting it. I had no idea that it's always on the top of my brain and I'm always guarding myself from that exclusion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I just never realized I was the one constantly trying to prove that I'm not pretending to have this ethnicity.
Okay. So how did it feel realizing you were never being shunned? You were just too in your own head.
It was a glass shattering moment for sure, because the second they kept pulling me closer and telling me, well, next time try this or here's some advice, instead of pushing me out, my armor started to crack for the first time. And I started to see that voice shaming me wasn't my stylist or my friends or family or culture. It was an old part of me still trying to survive by assuming that I didn't belong and being ready for that fear. So when everybody else responded with love and inclusion, that old narrative for the first time just didn't have anywhere to land. And I built my whole identity around assuming I was one mistake away from being kicked out. But nobody ever kicked me out. They pulled me closer. And so this experience, it broke a spell for the first time because I realized that this mixed girl insecurity wasn't a truth that I constantly needed to validate. It was actually a wound that I needed to heal.
Wow. So how do you heal this wound?
Well, parts work in therapy will always be the answer, for everything regarding my healing journey.
Yep.
And time and patience, even though I brought awareness to this for the first time, I'm not healed, I'm not cured. It's going to take more work and time.
Yeah.
Because this is a lifetime worth of struggling with my identity, you guys. Not only do I have a legit identity disorder and I'm learning I have multiple versions of myself living in my brain that I'm trying to work through.
Yeah.
I also have an ethnic identity crisis that I will also try to work through. So this is just one element. So patience, love, and time. But I will say, I also think that as I become this more integrated version of me, healing this wound is about accepting that I'll always be from two worlds. I'll always be half black and I'll always be half white.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's nothing I have to apologize for or feel embarrassed by or insecure when I get teased for it or something that I need to overcome.
Yes.
It's just who I am. So, when people make jokes about it, it doesn't need to hurt my feelings. It can be a truth I embrace, because if I'm singing Taylor Swift and Katy Perry in the club and my white side comes out, that's okay because that's who I am. I'm also white.
Yes.
And when someone, questions my ethnicity, it's not something to defend and tell them that I'm allowed to have this, but maybe perhaps educate, or I don't know. I guess just when somebody makes me feel like I don't belong,
Yeah.
I can now know that I'm still embraced and loved by all of my people, regardless of how I look, what I know, what movies I still need to watch, what music I still need to listen to, or which world I grew up in. Because belonging isn't something that I have to earn. It's something that I'm allowed to claim.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, JC, for sharing all that. And I do have to point out that it looks like we have braids again. So how do they make you feel now?
Yes, I love braids too much to never do them again. You guys, I cannot tell you how much I love having braids. It is unlocking something inside of me. And so this time I did even more research and I actually did them myself. So I spent about 7 hours right here on my living room floor, braiding up my hair, putting in all the crochet hair. And
that process doing it alone was so therapeutic as well, because again, I feel like I'm finally claiming a part of my culture that wasn't accessible to me yet. And I'm stepping into the most mixed version of myself yet unapologetically. And I can remember that, identity is just like my hair, where sometimes it's tangled and misunderstood, but it's always something that's mine to tend to learn how to manage and to love and embrace, because I'm done apologizing for all the knots in my hair. And instead I'm learning to embrace the whole texture of who I am from head to toe. Oh, amen, sister. Well, to any of our mixed listeners out there, let us know in the comments, how has your identity been affected by your mixed race? Is it something that you've struggled with? Did anything in this video at all resonate? Let me know some of your experiences in the comments, because I love this community and hearing from you guys as well. But that's going to be it for this episode of The Naked Puppet. College JC, thank you so much for introducing yourself to us, explaining the concept of teams in our system, and sharing this story in a way that I hope is relatable to a lot of people out there. So thank you for sharing. Yay! Thank you so much. This was so fun, and I'm sure it's not the last you guys will see of me. But that's curtain call on today's performance. If you want even more content of me healing in real time, go follow me on my social media channels. You can see my day-to-day life over on Instagram and some more of my mixed content. I've started to compartmentalize there. But if you like more of the OSDD healing type of content, definitely follow me over on TikTok. I'll leave the handles here. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching the visual format on YouTube, or leave a review if you haven't yet, if you're listening to the podcast. 5 stars help, any type of engagement helps. I'm still new and getting this going, and any type of support I truly appreciate. So that way I can share some of this knowledge and information and my healing journey with other people out there. So I appreciate you all so much for even watching or listening. But that's gonna be it for me. I am LA JC, and I will be exiting stage left. And I'm College JC, and I thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Toodles!